All right, so right now we are looking at solving a quadratic by completing the square, but we have a problem here. All the ones that we have done, A has been 1 already. In this case, A is not 1.
Just divide by 3.
Yes. So we are very lucky this time because you can't do completing the square if A is not 1. Okay? So you have to make it be 1 if it's not already. Luckily for us, I can just divide everybody by 3 and it'll be perfectly fine. So if I just divide this side by 3 and this side by 3, I get m squared minus 6m minus 1. What's 0 divided by 3?
0.
It's just 0. And now, lucky me, I can continue like normal. I want to move c to the other side. Take half of b and square it. That would be 9, so I'd add 9 to both sides. What are factors of 9 that add to be negative 6? Negative 3 and negative 3, so we write it as m minus 3 squared, and then we take the square root of both sides. Does 10 have any perfect square factors? Right, so it's just going to stay positive negative root 10, and then all I have to do is add the 3. Miss Sabia, I thought you said this was going to be difficult. Well, this time it was easy because all of my terms were divisible by 3.
Maybe what happens if you have like a fraction? You got to have the fraction to square that fraction. Can you square a fraction?
Of course you can.
Well, that's stupid. And math is not
Awesome. I know, right? So we won't jump right to that yet, but what happens if I had something like this? Let's say I had something along the lines of okay, so another quadratic. Here we go. A has to be 1, so I'm going to have to divide everybody by 10. Hey, everybody is divisible by 10 again. Miss Savy, I thought you said this was going to be harder. Oh, just wait.
I'm scared.
When was completing the square an easy thing to do? What?
Divided by 20.
Oh, just kidding. Thanks.
When?
Remember we learned on Friday when you can do completing the square on any quadratic you want, anyone in the whole wide world, but it's pretty easy to do it when there was 2 things that were going on.
Even? One of them?
Yes, when A is 1 and when B is even. So in this case, A wasn't 1, but it was pretty easy to get A to be 1. Sometimes it's not so easy. Sometimes that creates fractions, just that part. But so we have that one case. We do have A to be 1, but we don't have B to be even. That doesn't mean that we can't do completing the square. It just means we're going to have some fraction action here. Ready? All right. So my steps are still the same. A is 1, so I can continue. I'm going to move C to the other side. So, okay, it's a common thought to say, oh, let's just go to decimal. It's actually not going to do you any favors to go to decimal land. Yeah, half of 5 is 5 over 2, right? Right? You with me? What's 5 over 2 squared? 25 fourths, right? If you think about it, 5 over 2 squared means 5 over 2 times 5 over 2. So that's just 25 fourths. So that's the magic number I'm going to add to both sides.
Sabia, I don't know where you're getting anything from, and I'm going to cry.
You do. What's half of 5?
2.
Don't go to decimals.
2.5.
Isn't half of 5 just 5 over 2?
Yeah.
So, oh, then we did 5 over 2 squared. All right, now on the right hand side, I'm going to add them together like I always do. Just be careful, you got to combine fractions. What do I have to do before I can add on a common denominator? So instead of negative 2, isn't that the same thing as negative 8 over 4? Right? Negative 8 over 4 is the same thing. So sometimes what I like to do is I just rewrite it over here. Negative 8 over 4, and then I cross that out. Once I figure out what the equivalent fraction is. But that was the same thing. Negative 2 over 1 is negative 8 over 4. The same thing. 17/4, correct. Now, normally, you factor this side. Do you think I expect you to know factors of 25/4 that have to be negative 5? I do. But they're actually super easy. If you look back at any other problem we've done, there's a little bit of a pattern. So, see the number that we figured out went in the parentheses? What is it in relation to that number right there? See, that's a negative 10, that's a negative 5. What do they have to do with each other? It's half. Let's see. Oh, look, a positive 1. Is that half of that number right there? Oh my gosh. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Is this number half of that number that's right there? By golly. It's always half. Miss Sadie, how am I supposed to know what half of 5 is? You just told me before. Wasn't it just 5 over 2? Yeah. So, this thing in here, if you follow the pattern, it's just going to be x and then half of that number. Same sign, right? Because half of negative 5 is negative 5 over 2. So you just write that whole thing squared. I'll show you. Okay, ready? Everybody ready?
Yes.
All right. Square root both sides.
Throw us on a plane. You're like, you guys ready? Let's go.
Well,
You can't square 17 over 4. Well,
true, but when you're taking the square root of a fraction, remember it's the same thing as taking the square root of each one separately. So this is the same thing as taking the square root of 17 over the square root of 4. Well, what's the square root of 4? 2. Oh, up top I have square root of 17. That doesn't simplify. But the denominator, that was so nice and easy. Another reason why you do not want to go to decimal land, because that's not going to, it's going to be way worse in decimal land. Trust me. And I took a square root, so what do I always need to remember? Plus minus. You always need to have that, okay? When you take a square root, you put plus minus. You need both roots. And then we're almost there, guys. All you gotta do is add 5/2 to the other side. And just like every other time, you're just gonna stick it. 5/2 plus minus square root of 17 over 2.
so the positive negative goes to the whole fraction, right?
Yeah, so it's like 5/2 plus and minus root 17 over 2. Yep.
If I showed this to any person, they would ask me what language it was.
We took half of b and squared it. Because that's the step that we've been doing for 3 days. We always take half of b and square it. It's just that b has always been even. So, this is the first time b has been odd. So it creates a fraction. But it doesn't mean you can't do it. Half of b squared, right? So that's why we did 5 over 2 times 5 over 2. That's where 25/4 come from. So we're going to add that. That was our magic number to add to both sides.
So this is the thing that was so scary.
It can be a little worse.
Wow.
Well, what if b started as a fraction?
How do you know if you need to subtract the 2
Right here?
Yeah.
You always have to. You always want to move c, whatever it is, to the other side.
Oh,
Yeah. When I crossed that 0 out? Because I wrote 20 instead of 2 on accident. The only other thing I want to note is, especially since your midterm is coming up next week, your midterm is all multiple choice, so that's good. There's another way to write this answer that's the same thing.
25% chance of getting it right.
Well, see how they both have a denominator of 2? When they have the same denominator, you could also write it like this. 5 plus minus square root of 17 all over 2. And that's the same thing.
I mean, I remember going into the gym and being like, oh, it's going to be easy. Oh.
Yes. Let's not have that repeat.
You know what? Sabia, please don't give us one like this on our test.
Oh, there's no reason that you guys can't do this. It's just a matter of practicing. Yes, you are. You absolutely are.
I have 2 brain cells and they're dying.
Guys, I have every confidence in every single one of you.
Thank you, but I don't believe in myself.
Well, I do. Every single one of you can do this if you do a couple of things. You actually practice these. You don't play on your phone and you pay attention. There's no reason why you can't do these things. Of course you can. Absolutely you can. My goodness. Of course I'm saying after tomorrow. Okay. You think I expect you to get it the first time you ever see it? No. Let's try another one. All right. Here we go. You ready? If not the second, then maybe the third or the fourth or the fifth. But somewhere in there it's going to stick. Okay? Let's try this one. All right. X squared. How about this one? Minus 7x plus 10. So, good news. A is 1. See? We don't even have to worry about that.
But B is okay.
B is still odd. Okay, so that's unfortunate, but it's okay. Good morning, Miss Sabia. Hi. Hey. Good, how are you? Yes. No. Sure. Okay, bye. Yeah, Mr. Lucas wants to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, what did you do?
I'm sorry.
I probably wasn't playing so much.
Okay, so let's try this one.
Sabia, is it 49 over 4?
It will be, but I'm not there yet.
Minus 10.
So, step 1, yes, let's move C to the other side just like we always do. Okay, now, everybody in your minds, take half of B and square it. Don't say it out loud, just get that number in your head. You got it?
Yes.
What is it?
49 over 4.
49 over 4. You gotta take half of it and square it. I wanted you to do both, sorry. Half of B is 7 over 2. Squared is 49 fourths. So I'm going to add 49 fourths to both sides. Is everybody okay with where 49 fourths came from? All right. Now, on the left, you have to add negative 10 and 49 fourths. So 10 normally has a denominator of 1, but I needed to have a denominator of 4. Negative 40 over 4, right? Isn't that the same thing as negative 10? Right? Are you with me? Negative 40 over 4. So I'm just going to write it as negative 40 over 4, and then I cross out the negative 10. You don't have to do it that way. I don't care. That's what I like to do. And now that's really easy to see that this side comes out to be 9. What? Not there yet. Yep. You just subtract the numerators and you keep the denominator the same. 9 fourths. Now, on the left, this is where we need to rely on the pattern, right? Because I don't know factors of 49 fourths that add to be negative 7, but the pattern tells me it's going to be,
7 over 2.
what's the sign? Negative. It's always half of that number, so it's just going to be negative 7 over 2. Always. Always, always, always. All right, and then I just square root both sides. So we get x minus 7 halves equals, what's this?
9 squared. 9 squared root plus minus 3.
Isn't it just 3 over 2? Because the square root of 9 is just 3. Square root of 4 is just 2. So this one came out really nice. It's just plus minus 3 over 2. And now let's just add 7 over 2 to the other side. Stick it. 7 over 2 plus minus 3 over 2. Are you done? No, you can do this, and it's actually a lot easier than you think it is, right? Let me zoom in. You have 7 over 2 plus 3 over 2. And then 7 over 2 minus 3 over 2. So let's do the first one. 7 over 2 plus 3 over 2 is 10 over 2, which is really just 5. So one of my answers is just 5. Now let's minus 7 over 2 minus 3 over 2. 4 over 2, which is just 2. Cool! So my two answers are just 5 and 2 at the end of the day. What does that mean? That means when it comes out nice and clean like that, you could have factored. Think of, I know, like it's funny now, but if you go back, if you factor this, factors a 10 that add to be negative 7, and then just x minus 5, x minus 2, see how fast we would have gotten these answers? I know, so you're probably like, why didn't we do that? Well, you didn't check. But it further serves my point. You can do completing the square on anything. Now, will everything factor? No, this last one did not factor. There were not factors of 2 that have to be negative 5. So there will be quadratics where you can't factor. But I'm telling you, if you have the opportunity to use whatever tool you want, don't do completing the square with this one. Always try and factor it first. Because if it factors, my goodness, it'll take you 2 seconds and you get the answer. I'm telling you, there will be, I don't know, 2 or 3 of you. Once I show you quadratic formula, you're going to think that that's the easiest one. And you're going to be like, oh, I'm just going to do quadratic formula on every single problem. You can do that, but I can't tell you how many of those kids do quadratic formula wrong and then get all their answers wrong. Oh my gosh. You should not be doing quadratic formula on a problem like this because you can factor it so quickly. Quadratic formula is saved for when you have no other options. In my opinion, it's the worst one to deal with. But I do need it because I don't like to go to fraction land if I don't have to. So if it were me personally, I would have done this one by quadratic formula. But you don't have that option yet. But you will, soon. Probably tomorrow. Okay, you want to try one more where it's got a fraction and I don't lead you through it? And you try it? All right. There's that Tantascwa spirit. Oh! Okay, let's try this one. Now, yes, this is one that can be factored. But I want you to see if you can do it by completing the square. So you can do it by factoring and know what the answers are, and then just see if that's what you actually end up with. You have an answer?
No.
Oh.
I still didn't take the square root and everything, but isn't that just institution?
Yes, but I don't think you get a negative number.
Maybe I squared and square and I did the stuff, but I don't know how to do parentheses. Because I have the, where am I? I've got the 25 side, added it to math. But now I don't know what to do.
You added the fractions together?
Yeah.
So in your parentheses, it's just going to be x and then half of that number.
Half of what?
This number. It's always half of b.
Oh.
That's your pattern.
You can't take a half of 25 though.
There's no 25. You just want half of 5. Yeah? So that's what's in your parentheses.
Wait, would you square that way?
Well, first you move c to the other side.
How do you square a fourth?
Ah.
Oh, 1 over
Then you take half of 5 and square it. That number you add to both sides.
Wait, just write it
All right. Okay, we ready to try it? Hopefully some of you got some answers, or you got as far as you can. All right. Step 1 is still move c to the other side. A is 1 already, so we don't have to worry about that. So the next thing I have to do is find my magic number. I need half of this number squared. What is half of 5? 5 over 2. And 5 over 2 squared is 25 fourths. That's the magic number that I add to both sides. 25 fourths, 25 fourths. Now, 6 is normally 6 over 1, but I need it to be over 4, so wouldn't it just become negative 24 over 4, right? If I multiplied by 4 over 4, negative 6 times 4 is negative 24 over 4. So, negative 24 over 4, same thing as negative 6 over 1, right? If I actually did that out, I get negative 6. Yep, okay, everything's good. So 25 fourths minus 24 fourths leaves me with 1/4. On the left-hand side, normally you would factor this, but we're going to follow the pattern. It's always in the parentheses x and then half of that number, which is 5 over 2. Always, 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 always. Now I square root both sides. What is the square root of 1/4? Positive and negative 1/2, right? Plus minus 1/2. Now I just minus the 5 halves. You're going to stick it. Are you going to leave your answer like that? No, you're going to do it. If they're just numbers, you do it. Negative 5 halves plus 1/2 would be, which is really negative 2, right? Negative 4 over 2. And then I do negative 5 halves minus 1/2. Which is negative 6 halves or negative 3. So, on a quiz or a test, maybe I have 1 or 2 of these. So, I wouldn't inundate you. I don't need you to show me 15 times that you can handle an odd B term. But they're not that bad. It's just you gotta more practice, the easier they get. All right. So how do we feel? We're okay? I'm gonna stop this video.